welcome to The Real Deal. Now 30 years ago, Margaret Thatcher declared war and instilled the enemy within. We see the story of the miners who fought back. Here's a look at the trailer.
This was about communities and people's future. These people wanted to trash it. And the thing that was stood in the way were us.
I haven't seen this one, but you have seen this one. What did you think?
I really like this film. Like, I love a good documentary, and especially something about a topic that I'm really not that familiar with. And to be honest, I think that all people our age who were born in the 80s, you know, whether or not it's the early 80s, the late 80s, we should brush up on our knowledge of the miners' strike, because it's something that happened, you know, in 1984 that still really affects a lot of people today. You know, there's still a lot of people that, you know, especially we probably saw a lot of this when Margaret Thatcher passed away. You know, some of the animosity towards her, and someone like myself was questioning why. This documentary outlines that reason. It's basically archive footage and talking heads of the miners' side of the story, which, yes, of course, it's going to be biased because it's looking at that side of things, but nonetheless, it's something that not quite on the Senna level of archive footage, but on a very, very clever pedestal, I will put this. It's got an amazing archive sort of factor behind it.
How candid are the talking heads?
Yeah, I mean, the talking heads they're good, they're emotional, that you get the story. It's a really simple story that they tell, you know. It's the fight of the miners. It's, you know, them talking through their everyday lives, their struggles, you know, their struggle for food, their struggle for heating when everything got really, really bad, and their, you know, absolute determination that they were not going to lose this battle, and obviously, ultimately, they did. It's kind of a David and Goliath story, and it's told in a way that keeps you compelled and emotional throughout, which I loved.
I mean, does it go deep enough then?
It does, yeah. It's got a really deep sort of element to it. Without, but doesn't sound right, but with it still remaining simple enough for an audience to get their heads around. You know, it's not too much for a niche audience. It's something that will educate the masses in a way, which I think is really good. Some of the particular archive footage, I have to say, I don't know how they even got some of this archive footage. There are guys who were talking about kind of, you know, how would they get towards the picket line when the police were kind of barricading them off, and they would come up with really innovative ways, like dressing up as runners. And if you can imagine like what the 118 guys look like, you know, that is the running kit of the 80s. And those guys, you'd see them, and I don't know who was filming it at the time, but you know, they'd film them getting out of a car about a mile away from the turning into a town, a mining town, and then these guys that just sort of like, oh yeah, just going for a run, and then like, you know, round the corner in the bush, they've got their like pickets and stuff, and their, you know, their placards or whatever, and they go and start standing by the picket line. It's this whole like hidden story of the miners' strike, which I didn't really know, so I thought it was really, really good.
Sold. So was there anything about it which you weren't quite sure about?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's an educational film. Okay, it's not something that I would suggest necessarily to go to the cinema to watch. I think it could have done with a few more kind of ups and downs of emotion. There was plenty of emotion in it, but I think that there are key elements, you know, particularly when they go behind the scenes of how hard the struggles were. They could have chipped away just even more to allow us to really kind of feel the pain that they were going through. You know, I don't feel like I totally got it, I suppose, in a way, which is only a slight niggle. The other thing is that it's 2 hours long. It's a long time to watch a documentary.
I mean, I know you said that it was compelling. Did it keep you engaged for the full 2 hours?
You lost me kind of towards the last maybe hour, and after an hour and a half, I was like, this should be finishing now. It might be to do with the fact that where I watched it was the most uncomfortable seats ever, but and it was really hot. But generally, there are much more plus points to this film than there are bad. So I enjoyed it. I just think that there was things in terms of a cinematic perspective of it that could have worked a little bit better. Okay, but generally, all right.
Cool. So, without further ado, Rebecca Perfect. What is the real deal?
The real deal for Still the Enemy Within is that it is a strong, powerful tale that does need to be told, and for anyone who is in their 20s, early 30s, who was either a baby or just too young to kind of get to grips with what happened within our country at that time, yeah, me too. I think it's a really important thing to go and watch, you know. It's not something that necessarily is contrived through artistic license and recreations or anything. It's something that they're using a lot of archive footage, which I always think adds a lot of authenticity to it. So for me, I'd give it a solid 4 stars. I really liked it. I thought it was very good. So
high recommendation. Right?
High recommendation. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching our Real review on Still the Enemy Within. You can get in contact with us at The Real Film Show on Twitter, and check out our wonderful website for many, many more reviews, therealdealonfilm.com.
Thanks for watching.